Well, since the 1940s, when the first electric guitar was made by the iconic Les Paul, the guitar has become a staple of modern music. Names like Les Paul, Chet Atkins, Wes Montgomery, Jimi Hendrix, Randy Rhoads, Slash, Steve Vai, and The Edge are all synonymous with electric guitar mastery and six-string stardom. While each is known for their skill and craftsmanship on the guitar, they're also identified by something else, their tone. Each of these men and many more are almost instantly identifiable upon hearing only one or two notes of their playing. It is not only their style, but their tone that makes them who they are. Some, like the jazz great Wes Montgomery, use only his guitar and an amplifier, while others, like The Edge, have racks and racks full of pedals and processors and amplifiers to achieve their signature sound. Regardless of the way they get there, these guitarists have created their voice with their tone. It is the chase for that tone that we are here to talk about today. Well, thanks for being here today, guys. I know you all, like any other guitar player, are tone junkies, and you've all been chasing after your idea of perfect tone. Since you first heard it in your head or maybe on a record, I mean, we all have that sound that's just captured us, and we say, man, how can I create that? So John, who are those players for you that have really made tones or created guitar sounds that you seek to emulate?
Well, I think my first introduction to any guitarist that really knew how to play and knew how to just create an amazing sound out of his guitar was John Mayer. And that was back in like my freshman year of college. We went home for fall break and my friend bought the Live in LA DVD on the way home. And we watched that when I got back to my house. And I was just blown away with how he was getting the sounds he was getting. And I'd never really gotten much exposure to a guitarist who played the way that he played. And I was just hooked right off the bat. From then on, I was like, okay, whatever I learn, it's going to be catered to how John Mayer plays. It's going to be catered to how he makes his sounds and how the gear he uses and what brands he prefers. I just was like totally sold on it.
So Dylan, who is it? I know your tone is probably the most aggressive sounding of all the guitarists here. Who is it that's really symbolizes what you try to achieve in guitar tone?
A lot of what I do as a guitarist is less about chords and more about leads, single notes, melodies and whatnot. And I've always loved a silky, smooth, sparkling, over-the-top tone. First introduced by Eric Johnson. You know, everybody always said he emulated like a violin, but it was a guitar. Kind of that orchestral string type resonance. And so I love his tone. I love what he does, the thickness, the sparkle, everything that comes out of that. And as far as the more aggressive stuff, the edgier stuff, John Petrucci, just the amount of gain he gets with such clear sound. And yeah, the speed and precision, it just makes it look effortless with what he does.
So Nate, what about you? I know as a bass player, the tones you're going for are a little bit different than some of what we're trying to do. Your goal is different as a bass player. Who are the players that have really changed the way you think about bass tone?
For me, probably the most influential bass player would definitely have to be Pino Palladino. Just his rhythms and his tone and his style just are pretty much everything I want to encapsulate in my playing. I mean, there are others like the Ox for The Who. You know, Victor Wooten, some Marcus Miller with his slap tone is just godlike, and of course Jocko and his runs and just how he constructs bass lines. All those guys together really emulate to me what it means for good bass tone, as well as the occasional YouTube video of hearing someone, a closet musician, display their chops.
So it's clear that you guys have been influenced by a great number of people, but how is it that you go about creating the tone that is your own sound? What is it? What have you done? What instruments, or what pickups have you selected? What pedals, amps, all that kind of stuff? What are you Dylan? What do you do to get the Dylan Heisler sound?
A lot of it actually comes from my guitar. When I went shopping for this, I bought this guitar because of its versatility. Having 5 single coil pickups that can be combined in any number of possibilities of single coil or humbucker, any combination, whatever. The PRS 513 And so when it's all single coil, I can simulate like a lot of like real thick bluesy type stuff. If I want more aggressive tone, if I'm playing like heavy leads or metal, I have the Golden Cello and the MOSFET Full Drive 2 piggyback really well together to get like a real smooth but aggressive punch. So those go really well together. That's a lot of the that's the edgier stuff I do.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, combining front end pickups with a delay pedal and just the full drive for smoother tones. Sometimes I back off the volume in the tone a little bit just for. Just smooth, crisp, watery, just floating there.
Yeah, definitely.
I could go into anything.
Yeah,
actually,
yeah, I bet.
my pick.
That's a huge part of tone.
Pick
Yeah.
technique is a big one to me. I'm not a huge fan of regular sized picks anymore. This little pick, jazz picks, what I can do with it, a lot of the more aggressive stuff I do, I combine pick and I hit the string with my thumb for rather than just my pick. There's a huge amount of combinations you can get just from the angle you strike the string at, whether it's or just the same thing from three different attacks. It just makes the tone possibilities endless.
Sure, yeah. So Nate, what have you done to create the Nate Shadle bass sound? What are some of the things that you do to make that happen?
Well, first of all, I think, kind of going off of what Dylan said, a lot of it has to do with technique. I know tons of players who don't necessarily play through the top of the line stuff, but still get amazing tone, and I'm just like, how do you do that? And a lot of it's the technique that they use. But for me, right now, currently, I'm playing out of a Mesa 210 cab and a Mesa single 15, and then I have a TCA Electronic RH450, and then my bass is an MTD. Saratoga, and then the pickups in there are actually Bartolini's. They're pretty nice. I really enjoy their sound. But the thing that I keep coming back to is just technique and how you play, especially as a bass player. If you're really digging in, you're gonna get I find a much slappier tone if you're really digging in with your fingers, or if you're playing with a pick, or even like how you slap, where you slap, where you pluck, how you pluck, what you use. So it's just a lot of variations that you can use no matter how much cash or dough you want to put down. You just need a bass pretty much.
Sure.
So that's what I found.
Cool. John, what about you? What are some of the things you've done to make tone happen for you?
I think pedals is a big thing, like certain ones. I do a lot of research and listen to other people play different pedals and kind of like hear what sounds they're getting. But I think the biggest thing for me is the amp that I'm playing through. And when I kind of got hooked on that whole John Mayer tone thing, because he has a very distinct sound, it was like, okay, I got to find something that sort of I can get that same idea. I don't have enough money to buy a two-rock head right now, which I would like to get. But so I have a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe amp, single 12, and it's all tube amp. And I'm playing through a Schecter C1 Plus, which is technically like a metal guitar, but I like, because of the amp I have and the settings that I use, I can get some pretty Fendery sounding tones out of it. And so I think the biggest thing with like getting your tone is knowing your gear and knowing what you have, knowing your guitar, knowing your amp, knowing what pedals you have, and working with that and trying to figure it out. Because you could, like Nate was saying, with you hear some people with some gear that may not be that nice, but they're like getting some amazing sounds out of it. Same idea. You can, if you work enough, you can get your guitar to sound good, and if you play right, you can get it to sound good.
Well, as a guitar player myself, I'm no stranger to the fickle nature of gear. I mean, it seems like one day our gear is fantastic and it sounds awesome, and then the next day it sounds like complete garbage, and we just want to dump everything we own in a river and start over. So Nate, I mean, why is tone so elusive to find? What about it makes it so difficult to dial in and get just right?
Honestly, I think that's the ultimate question right there. I know some days, like, I'll turn on my amp and turn on stuff and start playing, and I'll be like, okay, this sounds really good. It's nice and warm, it's crisp, it's clean. And other days I'm like, what the heck happened? Like, do the tone fairies or whatever, like, hate my stuff right now? Like, I remember one day, like, I think I was playing, like, I was trying to learn, like, a Pino Palladino lick that was like, and I just, like, I kept playing it, and it just sounded like garbage all the time. And I'm just like, what the heck? And then I go and, like, I play it for my one recital, and I'm like, okay, this actually sounds good. And it was, honestly, it was just about the same day or something. And it was just, like, right before. And that happens where literally from sound check to performance, nothing's changed. And it'll either, the tone will just go up or it'll go out the window. And it's weird.
Yeah. Jon, I mean, what about you? I mean, you and I have had endless conversations about, man, my rig sounds so good right now, and then the next day, man, my rig sounds so bad right now. I mean, what is it that you find that makes guitar tone so elusive?
I think, like, well, the change up just where you play can change so much. If you play in your room, 4 walls real tight, you'll have a certain sound, and then you put your amp in a big auditorium, and it is totally different. And then, like, it's so frustrating to have, like, you find that perfect mic spot, and you play, and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you go to another place and you put a mic in the same spot, and next thing you know, it sounds like chicken wire scraped across glass. It's terrible, you know? It's like, this isn't making any noise. And it's just like the biggest frustration in the world. And so I think, like, with the tone being so elusive, you just, like, you gotta know your gear, and you gotta just keep messing with it.
Sure.
And, like, you know, I sit for hours, and some days I'm real pumped to just, like, sit and just mess with tones and hit one note, like, over and over again, and just touch dials. And it's, like, to the point where it's, like, a tweak of maybe less than a centimeter, like,
Just gets it.
Just a
Just
tiny
gets it.
bit just to get it. And, you know, I mean, that's just what you got to deal with.
Yeah.
What you got to deal with as a guitarist or as a bassist. It's part of the job description.
Sure.
You got to fight with your tone.
Sure.
But it's a sweet battle, because when you get it, it's like, oh yes, this is a good day.
Dylan, have you found something similar? I mean, I know your rig is probably, of all the people here, you have a pretty complex pedal board setup. I mean,
yeah.
do you find that your tone disappears as often as some of these guys?
I try to ignore it sometimes. I know, you know, sometimes humility or pride takes over, or sometimes self-judgment takes over, and it's just judging yourself, thinking, I just don't sound that good today. That's actually why I try to ignore it sometimes, because I realize other people still think I sound great, and I just think I sound like garbage.
Yeah.
I think that actually comes into effect a lot with any musician. You know, we are huge judges of ourselves. But aside from that, as far as the gear goes, I do try to be as precise as possible with everything. I take pictures of my settings. I memorize things. I try to make it simple. I memorize, if I want certain tones, which pickup combinations and what number I have my volume and everything on.
Yeah.
My amp, I love the Fender Blues Junior. It reproduces any tone you put into it, exactly as I want it. And to keep that simple, I usually keep the volumes both at 3, and I keep all the EQ just straight up so that it just sounds the same every time.
Right.
But the biggest thing that I found as far as playing live, I mean, practicing, absolutely the room has all the effect in the world, like Jon said. But playing live, I hate using monitors and I hate using in-ears, because what you hear coming through a monitor and what you hear in your ears is not what's coming out of the mains.
Sure.
And you know, if you train yourself enough, I've gotten to the point where I can hear myself through the mix, just listening to the mains and listening to the stage volume, and it it makes the world of difference, because if I hear myself coming out differently through a monitor, I'm going to sit there and adjust everything until I sound perfect coming out of that monitor, because that's what I hear. But that's not what's going to be coming out of, that's not what everyone else hears. So that's been a huge part of my practice to battle that issue.
Well, I think we can all agree that it's no easy task to capture the tone that we have in our heads and get it to our pedals and to our amps and ultimately to where everyone's going to be hearing it. So what is it that makes you guys keep going? What inspires you to keep trying to get a better sound? John, what inspires you to keep getting a better sound?
I think the biggest thing is having somebody to look up to, somebody that you really admire how they play, the styles they use. For instance, the first time I ever heard John Mayer pull into his lick in Gravity on his live DVD, I was just like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. What is that? So let's see if I can get something. So he came in and is just the fullness of it. It was just. It just was perfect.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it was so simple, so straightforward, so perfect. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So hearing somebody's guitar rig and their gear just sound so perfect, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down with my stuff until I get something that sounds that way. Even if I have to go buy stuff, I'm going to go do it. And like, it's the best thing because you hear somebody play something and you just go and you try to get it. And then the second you start to sort of get that sound, you get so excited, and then you start playing and you're just like so pumped to play more because you're like, oh, it sounds like it. So I think the biggest thing that keeps me going and keeps me wanting to keep fighting with the tone thing is hearing other players who are a few steps ahead of me.
Sure.
And just keep looking up to them and being like, okay, I got to keep going because they're still going. And it's the best thing, yeah.
So Dylan, what inspires you to keep looking for the tone that you're after? What makes you keep the next day taking out your guitar and working on it?
Definitely, like John said, having something or someone to aspire to. I mean, as a guitarist, everybody plays guitar, but then you've got those masters. You've got like Steve Vai, John Petrucci, Eric Johnson, Phil Keaggy is a big one that I look up to. There's always somebody better than you, and there's always somebody to look up to and somebody to try and mimic. I mean, with the amount of stuff you have for guitar and for music in general, there's no limit to what you can do with it. Versatility has been my huge, the little spot that I try to fit into is versatility. Just being able to do anything I want with what I have. And the guitar definitely helps, but also, like John said, it creates this cycle, you know. If you don't feel you're good enough, it drives you to practice. And the more you practice, then you find something else that you want to start practicing, and it just resets. Because then you don't feel good enough in that area, and you just have to practice more. If you find like you're stagnant or you're content where you're at, you really don't have to pick up your guitar unless somebody else wants to hear you play.
Nate, what about you, man? What has been the thing that keeps you moving forward as a bass player, especially when it comes to looking for a good quality tone?
I feel like never being satisfied and always being a learner are two huge things for me. I feel that once you become satisfied with how you're playing, what you sound like, then you stop getting better. And the same thing with whenever you stop learning, you stop progressing. And whenever you stop progressing, then I think somewhat of the music within you dies a little bit. I think there's something about just that desire to get better. And whenever you don't have that desire, to me, like, what's the point of making music if you're just satisfied with where you're at and you don't want to get better? Because, like Dylan said, like, the possibilities are endless. Like, there's so much that you can do with what you have, and there's no limit to one lifetime is not enough to learn all that there is about music, and I don't even think 2 lifetimes would be enough to learn everything. And I'm pretty sure a lot of professionals would say that as well. And just to encourage like other musicians, like, don't give up, like, go into the woodshed, practice, like, search for that tone, don't give up, be tenacious, like, you know, Like if you're like Jonathan and you just sit there and you literally pluck one note for an hour and you're adjusting one pedal, like to get that tone, like to me it's worth it if you're continually searching to progress. And I think part of that's what music's all about.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here and for talking about your tone and talking about what you've done to get it. Maybe someday people will be talking about us the way we were talking about some of our tone idols. But until then, we should probably keep practicing and keep working on our stuff. So, what do you say we play a little? Dylan, you got something to start with?
Sure.
All right, cool. Let's make it happen.
Follow along.